Hey guys, and sitting in before. This has been a bit long because I'm talking too much again. I really like studying this week. There were some really good things in here that just have been really, I've had to deal with them before in like real life, so I'm quite passionate about them. Anyway, so Romans 4, 18 through, well, actually the whole of Romans 4, but we're going to look at 18 through 21. This is remembering Abraham because he's trying to say to them, look, because there's this whole discussion around circumcision, non-circumcised, and like, oh, you can't be clean if you haven't committed like all these Mosaic laws, like, and actually, they're keeping the laws as a very much structured way to be righteous, rather than being righteous of character and intent. It was more like, if I do all these things exactly right, then I'm counted as righteous and God's people. And it's like he's teaching them, no, you've got it so wrong. You've taken this and twisted it out of all proportions. It doesn't actually matter whether you're circumcised or not circumcised, or any of the other things that, if you eat it, pray it, this and do that. No. It doesn't actually matter. Eat well, but, if you choose to not eat this, then don't eat that. But it's not actually going to make you more righteous. That's what he's trying to teach them. So he brings up Abraham as a prime example. So let's have a look at 18 through 21, because this is about Abraham himself. He tells a whole lot of things about him beforehand around, remember how he came to be, and that, he had all of these things go on. And if you remember back to last year's study, we talked about Abraham a lot, and how it says in verse 6, even as David described him, how he was, and just like, he wasn't a born Jew, he wasn't circumcised, he didn't, he didn't have any of those things going for him that you're trying to say make you righteous, and yet he covenanted with God the most, like the biggest covenant was Abraham's, and that's what we live by now. The blessings of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Abrahamic covenant, and we live by that now as a people. And yet he was none of those things that you are claiming that make you righteous. So that's what he's trying to remind them. And like, remember Abraham? Remember that guy? You read about him a lot. He wasn't any of those things that you're saying what make you righteous. And so let's have a look at some of those things. So 18, he's talking about Abraham directly here, and I just love that verse, and I love this too. So it says, who against hope believed in hope, that he might become the father of many nations, according to that which is spoken, so shall thy seed be. And I love that line, who against hope believed in hope, because I've had many experiences in life where I have been told this is not going to happen, it's not happening, this is impossible, this is ridiculous, you shouldn't be asking this, it's out of the realms of possibility, and so on. And I'm like, no, I know that there's a chance, and it's not that I'm going to make a chance, it's that God's going to make a chance for this to happen, and he told me it's going to happen, and there's ways to do this, and I have hope against all hope. Against hope, believe in hope. So everyone's telling me don't have hope, and I'm like, no, I'm believing in hope. I'm clinging to that, and there's good reason for that. And then in 19 it says, and being not weak in faith, he considered not his own body now dead, when he was about 100 years old, neither yet the deadness of Sarah's womb. Talking about like he is going to have children. He didn't even consider that I'm like 100 and my wife's like not had menstruation for years. It's like kind of cobwebs up there, mate. And didn't even like, it's not a problem. He's like, nope, God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And like, how incredible is that faith? And how much more could we benefit from trying to have that kind of faith, right? If God said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And we're like, yeah, but. And it's like, no, God said it's going to happen. So, right? 20, he staggered not at the promise of God through unbelief, but was strong in faith, giving glory to God. And then in 21, and being fully persuaded of that, you could put in of that, but being fully persuaded that what he had promised, he was able also to perform. So he knew that what God had promised, he was able to perform. That it wasn't a fake promise, it wasn't just a comfort thing. It was like, I've told you this is going to happen, and he knew that it was going to happen. And this is where you see a God of radical promises. You see an unexpected deliverer in Christ, and you see a God of radical promises. like, they're kind of out there, and you're like, I don't know how that's going to happen. And it's like, well, because we don't. We're not going to have references to how that happens because we don't understand that part of it, and that's why you just got to have faith. Bit of George Michael there, got to have faith. So remember Abraham, trying to teach that that acts alone or birthright does not qualify you as righteous. Telling them to remember Abraham, who deeply covenanted with God and believed in hope against all hope and did not fit the accepted ideal of a righteous man, yet he was in many remarkable ways. So Paul teaches in verse 21 that our God is a God of radical promises, and Abraham, with Christ's help, could do all that he was asked to do. He knew he could. So how does remembering Abraham and others like him help us to know that we can also accomplish what we are asked and able to do? Because there are things that we're asked to do and we're like, I don't know how to do that. I've still got things that I've been asked to do and I'm like, I don't quite know how I'm going to do that. And yet I know that I will be able to do it given that time when that comes, or I know I can. And my psychologist keeps saying to me like, oh, you'll be fine. And I'm like, yeah, I know I will be. But that doesn't negate how hard it's going to be and how difficult the journey is. And I know that I've got to do that with Christ, and I'm still going to need help from others. But I still know that I can do it. It's sometimes I don't want to do it. That's a different thing, not wanting to do it. But I know that I can do it. I will be made able, even if it's not until the very, you're talking about a clock, not until 11:59 p.m. kind of thing, like right on the mark. That saving grace of being able to do it come through. And, whether it's getting up to teach a class, or I was sharing the experience again the other day of like that whole like being thrown in the deep end thing. And I was down in Porirua and I lived down there for a couple of years, and I got called to the Stake Young Women's Presidency quad stake fireside. So that's 4 stakes. That's a lot of youth. Visiting authority, Aola Hafen, wonderful guy. I'm like 22 and been back at church maybe like a year, and and I'm like, okay, I can go to this fireside. We're hosting it. Okay, I've got to sit on the stand. I can do that. I can look good. I can pull that off. I can, be the part. And I get there and they're going through it. She said, get there early because we're running it. You get there and then she's like, oh, by the way, Lorraine, you're conducting. And I'm like, am I what now? Like, hold on. And I don't remember what I said. And I just knew that in that time, I didn't have time for preparation on that one, other than the preparation that we would practice all the time through just the school that I went to, and how my grandfather taught me to do, is to be prepared for those kind of moments that you'll be called on at any time to speak, to conduct, to run something, to stand up and be the leader of whatever. Be prepared for that. So that's the only preparation I had, was previous practice, but I had never conducted a meeting of that level over what equated to about 500 to 600 youth. That's a lot. Apparently I did a really good job. I do not know what I said, because I literally in that moment just kind of went, okay, literally, Jesus, here's the wheel, you're driving, mate. I'll be the mouthpiece, because there ain't no other way I'm going to do this. So that was my first experience probably entirely with this, and to learn to let him do that more often, and to have that faith that in that moment he will make it possible. There's many other things that are quite personal that I'm not going to share on here that he's made possible as well. But remembering Abraham and others like him, and reading those stories, and indeed studying scriptures and studying conference talks and their experiences around it, will help us to know that if it's for them, it's also for us. And definitely Abraham, because he made those covenants for his family and his, anyone that came after him, and I am one of those. And there's the whole world is flooded with them. So those promises are for us. And if it was possible for Abraham, then it's possible for us. The same promise stands. So, if we can remember him and the others that have come like him, then it'll help us to remember that it can happen for us too. So to not give up, and to really lean into that. There you go. All right, hang around. We're going to finish off in Romans 5.